Houston Station on 2 with a couple of WHC questions before the stowage conference.
Hey, Mike, we're about to start a live PAO event on 2. Can I put you on standby for 30 seconds and meet you on 3?
I'll meet you after the stowage conference, no problem.
Station, this is Houston. Are you ready for the event?
We are ready.
The post standard, this is Mission Control Houston. Please call station for a voice check.
Station, this is Syracuse Post Standard. How do you hear me?
We have you loud and clear.
Wonderful. Thanks for taking our Zoom today, Jeanette and Matt. This is your first space flight. What's it like to wake up in space every morning?
I think the funniest thing, and it still happens to me, there's lots of things when you wake up in space, but the funniest thing that happens to me is I'm just wildly disoriented. I know that I'm standing, I've been sleeping in this vertical chamber or horizontal, who knows what it is. But I wake up every morning just thinking I'm in some different orientation, upside down, and I have to reach for something and grab it to get orientation. But waking up and feeling you're completely upside down all the time is super fascinating.
And I'll just add that waking up in space every day is still amazing, but it is so, it's odd to not have an up or down. So you wake up kind of just disoriented almost every day, but then you realize you're in space, and it's awesome.
Well, you've now been in space, both of you, for 2 months. Is it feeling routine now? Are you discovering new things? Are you still getting used to some things?
Well, lately we've been practicing flips in space, and so just learning to move is a new thing too, because every time you change your position, Matt, would you go upside down for us? Because any way is up. I mean, you're still kind of acclimating because it doesn't matter which way you're standing, that's up for you. So like I'm up, you can be upside. Yeah. So I mean, this is very new for us, as you can imagine. So like we're both up in this case, but his perspective is different from mine, but we're still both up. So just little things like that, being in space is kind of cool.
Our crewmate Mike Barrett told me before we launched that despite the fact you can be in any orientation up here, if you really want to have a conversation with somebody, it's really hard to have a conversation when you're oriented like this. It's because we've been attuned our whole lives to understand somebody's spatial expressions when you're both oriented in the same direction. So if you're going to have a serious conversation with somebody, it's important to have the same orientation so you can interpret their body language correctly.
Jeanette, I think it's only fair that now that we've seen Matt's spin that you've been practicing, that we see your spin.
Touche, okay.
There we go. Good work. We've been flipping since we got up here, but we've been trying to perfect certain particular moves. We're coming up with a top 5 list, top 5 space station moves to go through the day. Maybe we'll send videos down eventually.
Each of you have had years of intense training to be where you are right now, up in the ISS, 250 miles above the Earth. Have you run into any situation, and it could be something minor, that you were not prepared for? What surprised you so far?
I mean, I would never say that I was actually scared. I mean, nervous. I think I've been nervous because I think the big thing for most of us is that we don't want to make a mistake. we want to be very careful on how we approach things and how we execute a procedure, especially when people on the ground are depending on us. Their research is vital up here, and the results that they get here will translate to future, research and products that we use for the moon, for the space station still, for the moon, for going to Mars potentially. So, making a mistake is like, you get nervous. You want to just do things correctly.
Well, that's a good a segue into the next question for you. Can each of you draw the connection between what you're doing right now on the ISS and what one day might become a Mars mission?
Go ahead. All right. So I would say it's all about for the most part, we are the experiment. The humans in space are the experiment. And any science researcher would understand, or statistician would understand, that it's all about increasing sample size. And the more humans we can get in orbit, the more we can understand what happens to the human body for long-duration spaceflight. And I think folks struggle with a sense of scale. We are 250 miles above the surface of the Earth, as you mentioned. The moon is 250,000, so that's 1,000 times further. And Mars, at its furthest point from the Earth, is about 240, 250 million, so another 1,000. And so the scale of things really is boggling to the human mind, and getting prepared to go that far to Mars is a big deal, especially if, for example, this microphone is the sun, and the Earth is here, and the Mars is over here. Sometimes they're close, and sometimes they're far apart, and that makes it really difficult in terms of time, distance for going to Mars. So getting people in space, seeing what happens to them, getting the reps, and practicing first by going to the moon is really the first step. So us being up here for a continuous basis, some people for 6 months, some people for a year, really builds the data set to understand how to live and work in space and ultimately go to Mars.
What's the biggest misconception that us Earthlings down here have about space travel or about living in space that you can kind of shed some light on now, having 2 months up there?
There's so many misconceptions. One of my favorites is that there's some magic line you pass where gravity just disappears. We're very much still in gravity right now. We're falling. We're going around the Earth, constantly falling towards Earth. We just keep missing the Earth, right? We're falling and we just keep missing because we're going so fast. So I think it's like roughly high 80s, 90% of the gravity you feel on Earth, but we're just falling the whole time. So that's one of the biggest misconceptions.
That's one of the biggest, but there's also like atmospheric dragging you down. There's all kind of things that we're still moving downwards. For me, one of the, I guess the biggest surprise is, some of the questions that kids always ask is, how do we do things? How do we eat in space? And I think like one of the things we eat just like you guys. It's just that we do not have like a stove with a frying pan and things like that, but same food is packaged, we heat it up or we rehydrate it. Even our, the bathroom is a little different. So, there's slight little misconceptions. The other thing that I think is not understood well is that everything floats up here. It's moving in some direction. So if you're doing research up here, you really have to figure out how to do it so that things don't float away from you, that you can keep everything in front of you. And the way fluids move in space is very different than on Earth. So research up here, there's an understanding that has to come before you can develop an experiment around the way things really operate here.
Can you tell us, each of you, a little bit about the experiments that you're working on right now?
Well, right now, we just had SpaceX 30 here. There were tons of experiments on there, from DNA sequencing. We did some PCRs of certain bacteria that we find here on station, and that was sequenced up here. So we're doing a lot of really interesting things. Matt was working, we both actually got a chance to work in the biofabrication facility, where they were actually trying to build cells of a heart, cardiac cells. So these are, like Matt said, we're the experiment, but those experiments sometimes they're not taking our cardiac cells and things like that, but they're demonstrating that they can actually fabricate different things here in space. So those are a couple of that I got a chance to be involved in, like Code Atom Lab.
Yeah, quite a few experiments. One of the experiments I'm involved in that's on me specifically is we have a bicycle, we have a treadmill, and we have a resistive lifting device that we use. The treadmill is really nice, but it takes up a lot of space and has a lot of mass. And for trips to Mars, we may not want to carry that much mass with us because it's just so much propellant necessary to accelerate it and decelerate it to get to Mars. And so we're looking at ways to not use a treadmill. And so, for example, I'm in an experiment where I'm up here for 6 months and I never get on a treadmill. I only ride a bike and do resistive exercise.
So you've been up there now for 2 months. You've probably got another roughly 4 months ahead of you. What are you most looking forward to?
Well, over the next few months, we're going to have visitors come next week. And then we may do another port relocation. We may do, I know that we're going to have several EVAs on our timeline that I'll get to help with. And I think Matt is scheduled for the first spacewalk with Tracy Dyson. So we're going to have a lot of different activities as things go on. But I enjoy kind of sinking in and really getting the feeling that we actually live here. This is our home. We take care of it. We're compatriots in this, and this is like, Matt's my across the cabin neighbor, and we live and work together, and I love that feeling. Even though I miss my family, we have a lot of connectivity to them. We have a lot of email that we can do. We have Teams. We have different ways we can call them and, see them have audio and visual with them. So even though we're here for 6 months, it's still a short amount of time. I just like this feeling of getting settled in and really living here.
I'm really looking forward to it. I look forward to dynamic ops. I like when things are going fast. Yesterday was great. We all got to pile into the Dragon, 4 of us, and go around the space station. Jeanette mentioned EVAs, getting people suited up, doing robotics operations. And then when I like to settle down, I really love just going to the cupola and taking pictures out various windows. They're just incredible sights to see. So going fast and taking pictures is what I look forward to.
For those who might not know, Matt is a test pilot and a combat flight guy. He's got lots of experience there. So, Jeanette, I got a question for you. So your family moved to Syracuse from Mississippi during the Great Migration, and now you're extending your family's journey into space, which is remarkable, and you're helping to contribute to humans possibly migrating to other planets. Can you just take a moment and reflect on this remarkable journey and what it means to you?
That is a great question. I never thought about that, but that is amazing. I mean, I keep using the word while I'm here in space, amazing, fantastic, exhilarating. I mean, you name it. And, these thoughts that come to me are very reflective, and it makes me think about the future. And, just being a part of it is important. Being able to give back and contribute to all of this is very important to me. And that's why I think this whole notion of settling down and actually kind of living here, writing a journal and reflecting on things like that, it's important for the furtherment of human exploration and just getting more people involved. And I do think that the more people that fly, the more this becomes a regular thing, the better off. We'll have better research, we'll have better countermeasures on Earth and on the moon and potentially in Mars. So you give me a lot to think about. I appreciate that. That's a lot.
Well, I'll make it easier with this next question for you, Jeanette. This is a quick one. So you've got 6 siblings, including a very accomplished twin sister. Does going to space for 6 months give you an edge in the sibling rivalry department?
Well, so She was baby B, so I'm baby A, so, there's no competition there. So, but, it's funny, we never really competed as kids. I always wanted her to do well, and if I saw her doing well, I want to do well too. So we just kind of played off of each other, just in the sense that we wanted each other to do well, and we set the bar high for each other and for ourselves. And so we just kept pushing each other forward. And I'm doing something that was never on her radar to do. And she's definitely, I could never do her job. She's been at the Patent and Trademark Office since 1998. She loves that job. She learns new stuff every day, just looking at different inventors' ideas. So, even though she's baby B, there's no competition. We're in it together.
Matt, this one is for you. You have 2 young daughters. Is it difficult being a space dad? How do you stay connected with them? And what are they curious about when they talk to you?
We're really lucky that we have lots of communication up here now. I mean, we are the satellite, so we get to communicate with other satellites back down to Earth pretty easily. They want me to play. They want me to do flips. My youngest daughter is always saying, Dad, play with the water. Show me the water stuff. Blow bubbles in the water. She loves that aspect of it. And I think they every now and then like to show it off a little bit. If I call down and one of their friends is there, we have a quick chat. So it's I'm from a Navy. I am part of a Navy family. My wife is very strong and independent, and it's great that she's able to do that without me at home. But this is how we grew up. Me going on deployment, so this is not something entirely new. It's just a little bit harder now that they're older and can recognize that I'm gone for so long.
Thank you, Matt. Now, you just put a question on my list that I didn't have. Did you bring water? Is there water nearby where you can demonstrate this to us childish adults?
I am a 42-year-old child, and there are people who have all of these experiments are probably very excited that I don't have water right now to blow a bubble of water. Whenever we do that, we always have towels nearby to capture the water. But it's quite a bit of fun to do that, to play with up here. And I'm a 42 going on maybe 12 sometimes, having a good time up here. You see us laughing and playing quite a bit up here. We have a blast.
Okay, I got a serious question for you. This is for both of you guys. Some people argue that humans should focus on solving problems here on Earth: poverty, war, famine, global warming. We all know the list goes on. And rather than waste resources on going back to the moon, let alone Mars one day, given your experience on ISS, what do you say to them?
There's, I think Jeanette and I both want to tackle on this question. We're both ready and pounced. There's lots of ways to look at this. I mentioned earlier talking about a sense of scale. The amount of money that we spend on this resource as a government is incredibly small in terms of the national budget. It's a fraction of 1%. And I think about your, a person in the United States or around the world for that matter who brings home some income level, right? You spend the vast majority of your income surviving, living, paying for your home, paying for your food, paying for the things. But if you have an eye to the future, you spend a very small fraction on investing in your future. Maybe it's savings, maybe it's investing in education. It's something that invests in your personal future and you going further somewhere else in life. So the U.S. government, or governments around the world for that matter, the fraction of a budget they spend on spaceflight and research and exploration is investing in the future. Because if you only spent money on the status quo, you'd never advance or never go further. So we are just a tiny fraction that's investing in the future of humanity.
And I'll just add to that, when you do have a space exploration program, I believe that many jobs are also created. Interest in STEM is also generated. And so in increasing these two items will help grow a country too. I mean, every time you have an idea, a new idea, for example, Intuitive Machines, that's a new company that started for space exploration that created a number of jobs for the futures. So as we have, as any country develops a space exploration program, they're developing jobs for their country. They're developing, increasing the interest in science and technology, and hence innovation in their own country as well. So I think it only generates, it generates a lot more for a country if you do have a space exploration program than taken away from the monies that can go to other people. I think it's generating money that can still go to other needs within the country. It could be infrastructure, it could be people in need, it can be a number of things, but that money can come from having a space exploration program that generates dollars for the country.
Well, thank you both for talking to us today, and thank you for your thoughtful answers and your candidness and humor, and we really appreciate it. And Jeanette, specifically, thank you for giving Syracuse a shout out pre-launch. We love that down here. We were all here in your hometown immensely proud of your accomplishments, so thank you. And thank you so much, Matt, for joining and talking to us today as well. Godspeed.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Station, this is Houston ACR. That concludes the event. Thank you.
Thank you to all participants. Station, we are now resuming operational audio communication.